In 1925, you could buy a piece of this town for $67.50. It came free with a newspaper subscription. 58 years later, the United States government paid $33 million for the same ground. Not to build anything on it, to empty it, fence it, and burn every house to ash. Between those two prices sits one of the strangest files in American history, a town killed by its own roads in the most ordinary way imaginable. This is Times Beach, Missouri, and the reason it does not exist started as $10 a load of dust control. The town began as a circulation stunt. The St. Louis Star-Times sold riverfront lots, 20 feet by 100, to anyone who bought a 6-month subscription. A town invented to sell newspapers. It grew into a real place. Working families, small houses, a stretch of the most famous road in America running through it, Route 66. By 1980, it held 2,041 people. Route 66 was the town's front porch. A 1935 roadhouse by the bridge fed travelers heading west. Gas stations, a drive-in, motels with neon. Half of America rolled past Times Beach and never knew its name. It had two problems. The first was the river. The Merrimack flooded and the town sat low. Everyone knew about the water. Nobody knew the second problem was already in the ground. The streets were dirt. In summer, the dust rose off them in clouds, into open windows, onto porches, onto the dinner tables. People complained at town meetings for years. So in 1972, the town did what half of rural Missouri was doing. It hired a man to make the dust go away. The man was a waste oil hauler named Russell Bliss. His method was simple. He collected used oil nobody wanted and sprayed it on roads, farms, and horse arenas for pennies a gallon. In 1971, he picked up a new client. To understand what was in his tanks, you have to go 250 miles southwest to a chemical plant in Verona, Missouri. In the 60s, it had produced components for Agent Orange. What was left in its stills was waste so contaminated the company paid to have it disappear. A chemical plant in Verona, Missouri that had once made Agent Orange components needed its still bottoms hauled away. Bliss took 6 truckloads, nearly 18,500 gallons. He mixed it into his spraying stock. Nobody analyzed it. It was waste. That waste was laced with dioxin, one of the most toxic compounds ever produced. And on May 26, 1971, Bliss sprayed 2,000 gallons of it on a horse arena called Shenandoah Stables. Within days, birds were falling dead from the rafters. The cats disappeared. Then the horses started dying. 62 of them at one stable. It was not only animals. Children who had played at the stables fell ill. One little girl was hospitalized for weeks. The doctors could not say why. The answer was 10 years away. The next year, Times Beach hired the same man for its streets. For $2,400, Bliss sprayed roughly 160,000 gallons of waste oil over the town's roads across 4 years. Here is the detail I cannot get past. Erasing an American town started as a line item for $2,400. Children played in that dust. It coated bicycles and porch rails and bare feet for a decade, through 4 rounds of spraying. It took 10 years and a trail of dead animals across the state before investigators connected the horses to the roads. And Times Beach was not special. Investigators eventually confirmed more than 25 sites across eastern Missouri that Bliss had sprayed with the same stock. Farms, parking lots, other people's roads. The town was just the biggest name on the list. By 1982, the EPA was quietly working through a list of sites Bliss had sprayed. Times Beach was on it. Investigators took soil samples from the town's road shoulders on December 3rd. The next day, the Merrimack River rose more than 14 feet above flood stage, the worst flood in the town's history. Almost everyone was evacuated. The water went through every home, over the sprayed roads, through every yard, and left a film of river mud on everything it touched. The president declared a federal disaster. Families spent the week in shelters and spare rooms, waiting for the water to drop so they could go home and start scrubbing. They did not know 2 agencies were now racing each other to their town. While the town bailed water, reporters got hold of an internal government list of suspected dioxin sites. Times Beach was on it. Residents learned this from the evening news, standing in borrowed kitchens. so the town was empty, soaked, and waiting to rebuild. When the lab results came back, on December 23, 1982, 2 days before Christmas, the Centers for Disease Control issued its advisory to a town of 2,000 people scattered across motels, church halls, and relatives' spare rooms. The language was bureaucratic. The meaning was not. Those who have been relocated are discouraged from moving back. Those who have already moved back are encouraged to leave. Christmas came 2 days later. Families opened presents in motel rooms with a television on, watching men in moon suits walk down their own streets. The word dioxin entered every vocabulary in St. Louis that week. Your house is standing, your furniture is inside, your mortgage is due. And your government has just told you, in writing, never to go home. What happened next had never happened in America before. On February 22, 1983, the EPA announced the federal government would buy the town. All of it. $33 million of Superfund money for 800 homes and 30 businesses. Nothing like it had ever been done in the United States. The announcement did not happen in a vacuum. The EPA was in the middle of a scandal over how Superfund money was being run. The official who announced the buyout resigned 3 weeks later. Her deputy was eventually convicted of perjury before Congress. In 1985, the state formally dissolved the city. The charter, the mayor's office, the name on the highway signs. On paper, Times Beach simply stopped being a place. For the residents, the checks came with a quiet cruelty. The government paid pre-disaster value for houses nobody on Earth would ever buy again, minus what the flood had already ruined. Then the fences went up around the town they had paid $67.50 to join. For a decade, Times Beach stood empty behind chain link, streets with no cars, a drive-in theater with no films. Then the government erased it properly. Patrols checked the fence line, deer moved into the yards, grass came up through Route 66. For 10 years, it was the quietest place in Missouri, and the most poisoned. A guard shack stood at the bridge. Former residents who needed to retrieve belongings signed a log and went in escorted, into their own living rooms. Most made the trip once, and never again. An incinerator was built on site, inside the fence where the town used to be. Through 1996 and 1997, it burned more than 265,000 tons of contaminated soil and debris. The houses, the roads, the ground itself. The cleanup cost close to $200 million, 6 times the price of the town. By the end of 1997, the fires were done and the tests came back clean. The incinerator was dismantled and hauled away, like the town before it. And then, on the clean fill where 800 homes had stood, Missouri opened a state park. Route 66 State Park. Picnic shelters, bike trails, a boat ramp on the river that drowned the town. Families grill hamburgers where the drive-in screen used to stand. One building survived everything. The 1935 roadhouse by the bridge became the park's visitor center. Inside, a small display tells the story. Most visitors walk past it, toward the picnic tables, on ground the EPA promises is safe now. There is one more twist in the file. In 1991, the federal health official who had urged the evacuation said publicly that, knowing the newer science, he might not have ordered it at all. The apology, if that is what it was, arrived 8 years after the town was sold and 6 years after it was dissolved. And the ash from those 265,000 burned tons never left. It is buried on site, capped and sealed, under a long grass mound in the park. Visitors climb it for the view of the river. 3 prices tell this whole story. $67.50 to be born. $33 million to die. $200 million to be burned clean and forgotten safely. Russell Bliss was never convicted of a crime for the spraying. He always said nobody told him what was in the oil, and he sprayed his own yard with it too. The chemical company's men went to court. The town went to ash. And the dust, finally, went away. Former residents spent decades wondering what the dust had done to them. The official studies were never conclusive. The worry never needed a lab. A town sold by a newspaper, killed by its own streets, bought by its own government, and burned by its own country. The lakes were deep, the bomb was secret, this one was just cheap. This is the third file in a series about towns the government erased. The drowned ones and the atomic ones are already on this channel. Paper trail is a small operation. If this file was worth your time, subscribing genuinely helps us open the next one. The file stays open.